double check our distance here today. Yep, we've got 2 meters here. That's looking good. Right distance away. Nice and safe, still adhering to social distancing. Let's just make sure our friends at home are a safe distance away. Yeah, absolutely. Hi folks, this is Captain Roman Wojnarski broadcasting to you live on social media from Station 424 in West Command. Another one of our discussions in a fire hall series. Of course, we're talking about fire safety. Very important topic, especially since so many of us are spending more time in the home. Home is a safe place. It can also be a very dangerous place if you don't adhere to the fire safety rules and regulations and safety tips that we are going to talk about today. I've got with me Tim and I've got Mike, two of our very finest fire and life safety educators. They're going to talk to you today about home escape planning and smoke alarms. Again, two really important topics that you can never hear too much about. So fellas, come on and sit down. But before we begin, just remember, we want you to be as much a part of this as we are. Please send your questions in by typing them in the comments box. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your feedback. We're going to answer as many of them as possible. Fellas, come on in.
Well, thanks, Captain. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tim.
I'm Mike. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks, Cap, for having us here today.
So, we know we've had a recent amount of fires in residential buildings lately. I know last week in this show was different educators, and they talked a lot about prevention. Today, we're going to focus on our other two topics, detection and escape. So, Mike, what do you want to talk about detection first?
Well, with all of those fires, there's always one way we're usually alerted to those, and it's with a smoke alarm. Smoke alarms save lives. Working smoke alarms save lives. Now, we need to have them in our homes. It's the law. As per the Ontario Fire Code, we need to have a working smoke alarm on every level of our home and outside of all sleeping areas. That's the law. Now, for some added protection, it'd be even better if we put one inside our bedrooms as well. Because some of us may sleep with the door closed. We want that early detection.
Yep. When you're buying smoke alarms, a good thing to know too is you need to install them as per the manufacturer's instructions. Certain places like close to vents, close to fans up on the ceiling, in the corner of a wall, right where the wall meets the ceiling, these are not good places for smoke alarms. So you want to look and make sure where you install it is a recommended place as well, because it can make the difference between detecting a fire quick or taking longer.
Absolutely. Now, I know many of us out there, maybe we've had some nuisance alarms or false alarms. Sometimes if you have a really hot shower, the humidity can set these off. Also, when we're cooking, I'm sure a bunch of our viewers, sometimes ourselves, we set off the smoke alarm, maybe our dinner gets a little too hot and sets it off. Well, there's a few things we can do to mitigate these problems. We never want to take down the smoke alarm.
Yep.
Removing the battery, those things are against the law. It's so important that you keep this up on your ceiling and working all the time. It's there to save your life. Some things you can do. Move it just a little bit back from your showers or from your bathrooms.
If you can, they say it's good to keep it about 10 feet away from the kitchen or 10 feet away from the stove if you have the room to do so.
Excellent. Yeah, and that's one of the best ways we can do. There's also a little button on here. We call it the hush button or silence. And on here, what we can do is you press this button, or I guess it's up on the ceiling. We press that hush or silence button, and that'll actually make the smoke alarm stop ringing for up to about 7 to 10 minutes. Gives you time to get all the smoke or humidity out of the room. And then after that, it will start to work again.
If you can't reach the button, another common thing you'll see is waving the smoke away. That works too, but it is good to know there's actually a hush button on these alarms that can silence them. Speaking of smoke alarms still, A good thing to know is there's different types. So some are actually better located, closer to a kitchen, and some are better near a bedroom. They have different names, photoelectric, ionization. Really, that's not as important. The good thing to know is a lot of times now, if you go into a store, any home improvement store, you can actually look at a lot of the packaging, and a lot of them now will say hallway, bedroom, living room. It'll mention the best place for it, so that you don't really have to have this huge knowledge of where the certain type needs to go.
Yes.
But some are better closer to the kitchen. They will not go off as easily in the event of a false alarm, which is good to have.
It's always good just to talk to your, you go to your local hardware store, whatever it is, and speak to the employees there. They're always very knowledgeable with these devices. Now, I think we should tell our viewers about how to maintain these and look after their devices. So first, we need to test these devices. We want to test them every week, okay? So every week, there is, on a lot of the devices, all of the devices, there is a test button, and all you have to do is press that. So we're going to test that today and make sure that this one is working.
Yeah, that's working.
I think we all heard that one. It's a little loud. We hear it a little too often. But hold it down for about 3 seconds. Hear those 3 beeps. Once you hear that, you're good for another week.
One other thing I want to bring up about the smoke alarms, we don't have one on the table to show right now, but if you have someone, let's say elderly, a family member, they're hard of hearing, maybe they're deaf. So if they can't hear the beep of a smoke alarm, what good is it? The good thing to know is you can buy smoke alarms with strobe lights. So when the smoke alarm goes off, it'll actually flash a very bright strobe. So even if the person is deaf or hard of hearing, they can actually see that their alarm is going off. Now, a way that they could test it, again, if they're a senior or elderly, you don't want anyone getting up on a chair or a ladder, but you could use a broom, or if they had a cane, and reach up and push the button as well to test the smoke alarm. Or get a family member to come and help them.
Yeah, we want you to check in on our vulnerable residents, or our older family members, because sometimes they're not able to do it, as you said.
Yep.
So check in on them, see if they have a working smoke alarm. That would be really good. Now, to prevent it from sometimes going off when you're cooking, false alarms, nuisance alarms, something you can do is along the vents, there's usually one on the front, one around the sides, and what you can do is take a vacuum to that very gently and clean it out regularly. It'll get all the dust and everything that hides in here, and it won't go off falsely.
So a good thing for cleaning them too is smoke alarms actually have a lifespan. So a lot of people think, okay, I changed the battery, which we'll talk about also, and that's it. Well, even if you change the battery regularly, which we recommend twice a year, usually in the fall when you change the clocks, and then in the spring when you change them again, you can do more than just change the battery. Usually they're recommended 7 to 10 years. You actually have to change the entire detector. You get things like you mentioned, steam, you get dirt, debris, you can even have insects in them, and it can make the smoke alarm either go off too easily, or possibly worse, take longer to go off in the event of a real fire. So they should be replaced as per the manufacturer's recommendation, which is usually 7 or 10 years.
Yes. And to make it easy, there's usually a date on the side or on the back, and that'll allow you to know when you need to replace that device.
A lot of times when you're installing a new one, you could put the date you installed it as well, so you can easily see it from down below.
Yeah, and as Tim said, we want to change the batteries every 6 months. Sometimes what you'll hear is you'll hear this other beep. It's a single chirp, and then maybe in 2 to 3 minutes again, you'll hear it again. Well, that's not an emergency. That is the device telling you that you have a low battery. So our recommendation is make sure you have some batteries around so that you can, in the case that it happens at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning,
Which is when it always happens.
it's just when it always happens, we have a battery so that we don't have to listen to that chirping all night. So keep a couple 9 volts, or take a look at yours. Maybe they're a AA battery. Make sure that you have the right ones for your device.
And a good thing too is as technology is always improving, a lot of smoke alarms now, they're not even using backup batteries. They're doing 10-year sealed lithium batteries. Meaning you buy that device, I think we have one right in the middle here, you buy it, you put it up, you test it to make sure it's working, and other than testing it weekly, you pretty much don't have to change that battery. It's meant to last for the life of the device. So it's just a way to get around, how to use a ladder if you had a really tall ceiling. You buy one of the 10-year smoke alarms. Did that one test?
We can give this one a test.
So this one uses a 9-volt battery. It's good to know what they sound like. Sometimes smoke alarms sound different as well. Yeah, that's working.
I'd say that's working.
Yeah. So in terms of smoke alarms, that's the general info we want to touch on. The other big detection though, carbon monoxide. Honestly, can be just as deadly. So the reason we talk about carbon monoxide being just as deadly, the other name for carbon monoxide is the silent killer. So if people aren't aware, carbon monoxide is a gas that is an off-gassing or byproduct whenever we burn fuel. So in our homes, the common fuel would be your propane, natural gas, methane, or like a wood-burning stove. Whenever these things burn, they give off carbon monoxide. The danger is carbon monoxide has no smell, it has no color, it has no taste. So if you had a faulty furnace that was leaking carbon monoxide into your house, and you didn't have a detector to warn you, you have no idea that it's happening. And then what happens if you breathe too much of it, right?
Exactly. Well, the symptoms, if you breathe too much, it essentially replaces the oxygen in your body, and you can pass out and essentially never wake up. A lot of the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning are similar to the flu.
Which is kind of even scary right now, because of the...
Exactly. Yeah, you could have stomach aches, headaches, you can feel tired and cold, nausea,
shortness of breath.
Absolutely. And if you have any of those symptoms and your carbon monoxide alarm is going off, you could be experiencing carbon monoxide poisoning. If you ever do hear this device, you want to get out of your home and call 911 right away.
So I have an example of one here. Now, unlike smoke alarms, where you have to have a smoke alarm on every level of your floor and outside the bedrooms by law, the carbon monoxide detectors, by law in a home, only have to be outside of the areas that people sleep. So an example in a normal home would be they'd be in the hallway outside the bedrooms. But let's say you also have a bedroom in the basement. Well, that means you have two then. You'd have to have one outside your bedrooms upstairs, and you'd have to have one located down where the bedroom is. Now again, feel free as we're talking, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in, and we'll have Captain Woj ask them as well. Now with carbon monoxide alarms, the good thing is if you need one or you're missing one, unlike smoke alarms which have to go up on the ceiling because smoke rises, these can actually be put on the ceiling, such as this one, which is a combination smoke and CO alarm, or like the one I'm holding here, it can actually be plugged right into a wall outlet. So carbon monoxide can be detected up high or down low. It doesn't have to go on the ceiling like a smoke alarm does. So I'm going to give this one a test. Same thing, this one has a 9-volt battery. I push the button, one beep, and then it's going to go once more. Hopefully, there we go. So what you'll notice is the difference is a carbon monoxide alarm does 4 quick beeps, a pause, 4 quick beeps. That's kind of how you hear a difference between when the smoke alarm is going off versus your carbon monoxide alarm.
And the same as smoke alarms, we want to be testing them weekly. So maybe every Monday, however it is that you remind yourself, put it on your calendar, test your smoke alarms and your carbon monoxide alarms every week, change the batteries.
Or twice a year.
Twice a year, every 6 months. And carbon monoxide alarms, they're usually good for about 5 to 7 years.
A little bit less, yeah.
But, as Tim said earlier, it's in the manufacturer's instructions. So when you pull it out of the box, give it a quick read, and you'll make sure that you and your family are safe.
And again, with technology, they're always trying to make it easier. So if you needed to replace one or you needed one, instead of buying a smoke alarm by itself with a backup battery, then buying a carbon monoxide detector by itself with a backup battery, you buy a 10-year sealed one, carbon and smoke, up on the ceiling outside the bedroom. It'll detect both. It's got a 10-year battery. It's just less maintenance. So there's a lot of different options depending on what you need in the house.
So along with our detection, we have our smoke alarms, we have our smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms. We want to make sure that all of you out there have a home escape plan. What that is It's a plan in the event of an emergency. And I think that's what we're gonna talk about next.
Yeah, so we're going to go down from detection to escape. One of the things when we do presentations to people we talk about is that fires nowadays are hotter and they burn quicker than they did in, let's say, our parents' age because of the construction and the type of materials we have. So people maybe used to have 10 minutes to get out of their house in a fire. Nowadays, it can be down to a minute, 2 minutes, when you have a fire starting to when you have to be out of that house. So part of that is planning. Having a plan in place before the emergency happens.
Exactly. So what we want to do, and with everybody being at home right now, I think it's a great activity for all of you to do, is create a plan with you and your family. And kind of step one is get everybody that you live with, maybe around the table, and we're going to draw a plan of our home. So draw a map of every floor of your house, label all the doors and windows, label all the rooms, and then go into each room with everybody and look to see if you have at least 2 ways out of every room. Now in a house, we're usually going to be able to walk right out the door. We have our working smoke alarms, they give us that early detection. If we have to, windows, they are an option.
A good one with that too when you're talking about windows is, especially with children or anything like that, they might think, oh yes, I have a window, I can use it as a second means of escape. Okay, there's many different types of windows. You could have a window that only opens this much. Could be a crank window. Could have bars on it. So a good idea is that you actually actively go with your family and you open that window. Even take off the screen and be like, okay, yeah, this actually can be a way out. Don't just point and say, yeah, that's a window. Try it. You have time, right? You may as well give it a try.
So yeah, draw out the map, and we need to have a meeting place. So a meeting place is somewhere where you and everyone you live with can meet outside at the front of your home. We want it to be something permanent. Some options could be, the end of your driveway, maybe the sidewalk.
Big tree,
maybe the neighbor's house. Because once we get outside, we cannot go back in. If our cell phone's in there, anything else, maybe we go to the neighbor's house to call 911.
Yeah, the idea of a meeting place is sadly, we've had fires where, half the family went out one way, someone went out the back. They don't know that everyone got out safely, so what does that one person do? They go back in the fire, which is something you can never ever do. So you need a meeting place where everyone knows to go to.
Exactly. So draw a map of your home with at least 2 ways out, have that meeting place, and then practice with everyone. Practice ringing the alarm, practice going downstairs, getting outside, and we always want to remind you, in a real emergency, you're going to call 911 from outside of your home. We want to make sure you and your family and everyone you live with are outside safely. Check in on the elderly too. Check in on your older family members. Make sure that they have a plan.
This should be part of your plan too, is if you have someone in your house, children, elderly, someone with special needs or a disability, factor that into the plan. Do they need help out? Is there a wheelchair? Is there something you need to do to help get them out? That should be part of the plan as well.
Yeah, if you have friends and family come over, maybe not now, but down the road, practice it with them too. They're going to look to you as the experts to get out of your home. So it'd be good to always practice with anybody that may come over to your home.
Or if you have children and you have a babysitter, you should make sure the babysitter knows your home escape plan. In case you're out for dinner or gone for the night, well, they need to be aware of it as well.
Yeah. So as we kind of talked about today, we want to make sure our smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms are tested every week. Change those batteries every 6 months or twice a year. Usually when we change our clocks, as you mentioned. Check on our family members. Check on our older family members. Sometimes they can't reach those smoke alarms, and maybe you can help them out and test it. As we mentioned, a working carbon monoxide or working smoke alarm will save your life in an emergency. It'll give you that early detection to get out of your home.
For home escape planning, if you're having trouble coming up with a plan or you want to find a good example or a grid, the easiest way I find is you go into Google, you type in Toronto Fire pamphlets. It brings you to our webpage where we have Alarm for Life, which is our home escape planning document, as well as a bunch of other documents. We also have them translated online into about 15 or 17 different languages. So if you Google that, you go on, you can view it, you can download it, save it as a PDF, you can print it, and it's a good resource to get started on your home escape plan. Another thing we're hoping we could do is we wanted people that, when you do your home escape plan, you can go on our Twitter, Toronto_fire, and tag us with your picture of your family's home escape plan. And we were hoping to maybe feature some families and post it on our Twitter account. So Toronto_fire on Twitter, and just send us some home escape plans to take a look at.
Yeah, and today we talked about home escape plans out of a general house. One of the upcoming weeks, we're going to talk about how to do it out of a high-rise or an apartment building. Because for you, it's going to be a little different. But check out one of our next sessions, and we'll give you that information.
Yeah, I think high-rise could almost have its own entire session. There's a lot to talk about for that,
Yeah.
so I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Captain, was there any questions you had?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions sent in from our live stream social media audience. Thank you. I've got a question from Prim. She's asking, is it better? You mentioned CO alarms, and
Yeah.
she's wondering, is it better to buy the type you plug in, or is it better to buy the type that you install on a ceiling?
So, common question we get all the time. It does not matter. The common misconception people have is that CO either rises, carbon monoxide rises or sinks. It actually doesn't. It's almost the same weight as air. So if it was in your house, it was leaking, it would actually move through your house along with just the air currents in your house. So a detector, like a combination smoke CO on the ceiling, will work just the same as one of these CO detectors plugged in down low on a wall. It should be the exact same. It weighs almost the same amount of air. It doesn't sink like propane. Propane sinks, carbon monoxide doesn't. It'll just move with the air. So honestly, whatever you need for your house, if this is easier, a plug-in, buy the plug-in.
Just make sure it always has a battery backup in case the power goes out.
But good question, yeah.
Okay, another question. You've talked about home escape planning, and Stanley is asking, sounds like a student, how often should we be practicing our home escape plan?
Good question.
Good question, Stanley. Yeah. Well, we recommend at least twice a year.
Yep.
More often, the better, but at a minimum, twice a year, we want to practice that home escape plan.
Yeah. If you have family in the house too, especially children, when they're in school, they actually have to do 6 fire drills a year, 3 each semester. So they're used to doing fire drills. So you treat a fire drill at school, you do a fire drill at home. They're kind of used to the idea of it already, so yeah.
And we've got one more question here from Jane. Jane is a senior, and she says that her husband replaces batteries in the smoke alarm, but he buys them at the dollar store. I don't know, a lot of good deals at the dollar store, but anything to say about
I hate to put down a dollar store. There's a lot of good things to buy from it. The general idea that we usually talk about is anything that has to do with technology, electricity, life safety.
Yes.
Ideally, you would not want to purchase it from a dollar store. A lot of times too, you're looking for certain markings like ULC, CSA. If you see these markings on something, there's certifications that they've undergone testing by a Canadian laboratory to make sure that they will work. I would recommend buying batteries from more like a home improvement store. The Canadian Tires, Walmart's, Home Depot's, whatever, any of those.
brand new.
Yeah, brand new, exactly.
Yes.
As opposed to the dollar store. I can't trust the battery as much. For a smoke alarm, I want to trust that it's going to work.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, those are some great questions. As we mentioned, remember, make sure you have those working smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms in your homes. And while we're all at home, let's create that home escape plan with everyone we live with, so that we can have a much safer time right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening today. I hope we enjoyed it. Tim, it was a blast to chat with you today.
To you, Mike. That was awesome. I hope we'll be able to see you guys next week. Maybe it'll be someone else, but either way, tune in. We'll put it on Twitter and we'll announce it when we're doing our next live stream.
Stay safe out
Stay
there.
safe, everyone.